Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Laurie Beagle. I'm the Managing Director at Forums International. Welcome to the next webinar in the series. I think this is our 12th in a row, and this is probably the most topical with the B word, with Brexit. So just to let you know that there is a chat button, so if you've got any questions, please register at the chat button and we'll get back to those at the end of the presentations. And also we're recording this. I'm very, very pleased to have Christopher and Iveta with us from Euler Hermes, who are going to take us through to the Brexit and the role of credit insurance. Now, for those who don't know Forums International, let's just give you a bit of background. And Forums International started in 2015, but we've actually been running forums since 1991. And in fact, October this year was quite an important month for us because we've just held the 160th meeting of our CPF meeting in Bracknell. So that's the great granddaddy of them all. We started in 1991. Objectives are that we provide opportunities for professionals to meet and discuss key trading challenges, because there are many of those at the moment, share experiences, and hopefully create new and best practices in line with the needs of business today. Most importantly, discuss how to succeed in the future, as it's succeeding business is a key element. Our forums are attended by credit and financial professionals of all levels, and we only have pre-approved corporate partners, so suppliers, I'm afraid, are not allowed to come along, so you never intentionally be sold to. As I mentioned, our oldest forum, 160th meeting, so that's what we call it, 160 and counting. First meeting in January 1991. Started as a credit circle for the computer manufacturers. It's moved on a bit since then. We had it in a small hotel in Bracknell, and now we've moved it across the road to a larger hotel, but it's always been held in Bracknell in Berkshire. The quarterly meetings, and it's now moved on from being computer manufacturers to across the industry group. And our plan there is to keep pace with business challenges. Now, just to give you a little idea of what's coming up in November, December, and through to early 2020, we're running quite a few forums, and as you can see, some of those may be of interest to you. So if they are, let us know. Lots of information on social media and on our website about what's going to be on the agendas for those meetings. So we're very, very pleased to be supported by nearly 20 corporate partners. Some very, very well-known names there, I'm sure. And as of January this year, we became a CICM corporate partner, which we're very proud of as well. So thank you to all of our corporate partners for their support. So why are we different? All of our agenda items are decided by the members. So it's not just us thinking up ideas. They are not lecture-based. They're all interactive workshops. Yesterday we had our senior management forum in Stratford with over 30 people there sitting in round tables, and very, very interactive, led by subject matter experts. And as it said there, we try and get that 50-50 split. So 50% of the subject is led by the subject matter experts. The other 50% is where the attendees can share their experiences. I believe you put those two things together, it's very, very powerful. Our forums prefer opportunities for attendees to discuss their key trading issues, and we rather hope that we find some solutions along the way. So share experiences and challenges, and also we want to hear of people's successes. The objective is to network with your peers, gain those new tools and techniques, increase and enhance personal skill levels, gather information and intelligence where applicable, build that new and best practices, as I mentioned previously, and improve your team's productivity and results. Now, it's not exhaustive list, that list goes on and on and on, but I think they're probably the key elements. Now, return on investment is very key. Spending a day out of the office or perhaps sometimes longer has got to have a return. We pre-plan and schedule our meetings in advance, a year in advance, so we can tell you what we're doing December 2020. The agendas are always published, getting on for 6 to 8 weeks before each meeting. We have LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter groups, where we're sharing and asking for people's input. We have a very active website with a secure members area, so all past presentations and workshops are there behind a ID and password. We have a knowledge hub which we're relaunching very shortly, and this allows the members through the website to ask each other questions, share experiences. Currently we're doing it via email, but it is on the website. As I say, we're relaunching that in the next few weeks. If you're a CICM member, you also can gain CPD points or hours at all of our events. I mentioned this earlier, pre-approved and contracted corporate partners, and certainly access to industry subject matter experts. Dare I say, affordable membership fees, cheaper than training, which covers 2 attendees from each member company. The list of agenda items we've covered over the years goes on and on and on. We did start to list them once and got to about 400 and decided we were wasting our time just listing them. But here's a few ideas. Of course, in alphabetical order, and of course BREXIT's in there as well. So some of this is traditional, some of it's new, some of it's technical, some of it's people related. So 2020, we've had a very exciting 2019, and 2020 will not be any different. We're expanding our communications, technology and electronics, information communication, technology and electronics forum, and that will be meeting in the UK and Europe next year. We're also expanding our pharmaceutical group, and the manufacturing forum will also be meeting in Europe next year. We held about a year ago an Amazon's suppliers forum, which was, surprise, surprise, we had lots of attendees, and we've been asked if we'll run that again. We were hoping to do that before the end of this year, but it looks as if it's going to slip to 2020 now. I'm a proud member of the CICM, and as we said, we're corporate partners, and we're doing roundtable workshops and webinars with them on an ongoing basis, and will continue in 2020. And something new for this year, not everybody can go away from the office. So we actually now are offering virtual attendance, which is a bit like a webinar. You can hear what's going on, you can see the slides, but we can hear you also, so you can take part in the discussions and the workshops. And that's becoming very, very successful. We also have something called 7 Ways Our Forums Can Benefit Your Business. A really interesting read. The link is there, we'll make that available to you. Just recently been updated, and we'll give you some food for thought if we get an opportunity to get your hands on that. So in summary, We very much understand that everybody in the world is time poor. If you're not, then I'm very surprised. I'd like to know how you manage it. Taking time out of the office can be seen as a luxury. So our forums are not just meetings, but communities. So whether we meet 3 times a year, 4 times a year, our forums being communities, which means it's almost 24/7. We also provide a vehicle for you to learn new skills, address business challenges, develop new and best practices, and network and share experiences with your peers. The forums are subscription based, I'm afraid, so nothing's free, but if you'd like to come along, have a look for yourself, coming along to that first meeting is free. So I'd now like to hand over to Christopher and Iveta, who now got the role of telling us about Brexit and the role of credit insurance in that environment. So over to you.
Thanks, Laurie. Firstly, I'd just like to say thank you for having us. I'm Chris Partington. I work at Euler Hermes as a new business underwriter, and with me I have Iveta, who works as a risk underwriter, specialising in the retail and IT sector. So I'll just give you the idea of what it is that we will be going through today. So firstly, we'll go through Brexit, then a quick go over of the UK economy and what to expect in the coming months. And then I'll move on to what credit insurance is, what it can do for your business, and a quick overview of Euler Hermes and what we can do. So over to Iveta.
Can't hear her, Chris. Iveta, we can't hear you, I'm afraid. It's you're
Can you hear me better?
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
all right, okay.
Yes, that's better. I couldn't hear you at all just now.
All right, okay. Sorry about that. So I'll just start again. Last few weeks and months have been very busy for Boris Johnson and the UK Parliament. We have seen that new law was passed by the MPs to stop a no-deal Brexit. If they can't agree on any deal, this will have to be applied for by the 19th of October. As we know, Boris Johnson suspended the Parliament last month, but the Supreme Court decided that Boris Johnson's advice to the Queen on suspending the Parliament was unlawful. However, for the time being, the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, will remain in the office. And prospects for a Brexit deal between the EU and UK have significantly risen over the past few days, but in our view, we still anticipate a technical extension until early 2020. A deal should reduce uncertainty in the UK and should help the UK to return to business as usual. We expect the rise in business confidence to boost domestic investments, which contracted over the past 2 years. The foreign investment should also gain momentum going forward, and the labour shortages should reduce and support margins of the UK companies. The next important milestone, as we know, is EU Summit, which is actually taking place now, today and tomorrow. And we continue to expect a last-minute extension of Article 50 until next year. This will be justified by early elections taking place by the year end, most probably in November. In this table, we'll just give you a few scenarios that could happen between now and over the next couple of years. I'm not going to go through all the table. I'm sure we'll share the slides with you later, but I'll just go through some points. So we give about 50% probability that there will be, the Article 50 will be extended in 2019. So this is most likely scenario that we believe will happen. And as a result of that, the GDP will increase, will grow slightly at slow rate to 1.2%. For 2019, the inflation will slightly increase to 2.1%. At the moment, it's 1.7%. And sterling will remain still quite weak, well, at the same levels as it is now. And the business insolvencies will increase. We expect that it will increase by 11%. But the next year, in 2020, the GDP will reduce slowly to 1%. Inflation will remain at stable levels at 2%. So will the sterling, and the business insolvencies are expected to reduce to 5%, as we can see here. And then in 2021, there will be slight improvement in economy, in all economic indicators, because there will be kind of, the transition. It will be a transition period. The businesses will know how to adapt to it, hopefully. So the GDP will increase slightly, the sterling will improve slightly, and the insolvencies should drop. However, we give 40% probability on a no deal. We still give 40% probability, which is quite high. I mean, last year, this time, the probability was 25%. And if this happens, so if no deal, if hard Brexit happens, the GDP will grow at slow pace at 0.8% in 2019. The inflation will be quite high at 3.5%, and the business insolvencies will be quite significant at 12%. And of course, the sterling will weaken. And this is mainly because of the tariffs that will be implemented, so increased cost, weakened sterling, etc. In 2020, we will see that the UK will enter a recession because GDP would decrease by, will be a negative at -1%. Inflation will stay high at 3%, again sterling weak, and the business insolvencies will increase to 15%, which is quite significant. Sorry about this. And then again, in 2021, we'll have a second year of recession. So another contraction in GDP by 0.5%. But insolvencies will reduce, but they will be still high at 8%, and the selling will remain weak. So here, just to summarize, what would happen if there will be a no deal? So what is the impact for the UK? So on the 31st of October 2019, if there is no deal, the tariffs will be imposed on imports to the UK. So that means higher prices. There will be potential fall in sterling, again, higher costs. The customs checks will be introduced on British goods. There will be a restriction on how long these custom checks will take. So there will be delays at ports like Dover. This could affect the price and availability of some foods, saying that there could be a potential shortages in medicines as well because of that. There will be a waiting time on the road due to additional administrative paperwork. They estimate that waiting time could be as long as about 5 hours because of the additional checks at the borders. UK will lose all free trade agreements they benefited from the EU membership, and there were about 40 plus trade agreements. As we mentioned earlier, the economy will contract, inflation will be high, sterling will be weak. If you look on this graph over here, there is a breakdown of industries, which show what would happen, what kind of export losses they will generate next year if there is hard Brexit. Hard Brexit is this one, this dark blue line. So as we can see, services would lose around 36 billion of pounds because of that. Service sector actually accounts for about 80% of the economy, and it includes restaurants, hotels, and finance, and so on. And growth in this sector has dropped close to stalling point in August because of the increased risk, because of the increased uncertainty around the Brexit. What we have seen this year was quite interesting. We have seen that in the first quarter of this year, many businesses resorted for a contingency stockpiling. This happened in Q1 2019, before the original Brexit date, which was March 2019. This stockpiling has reduced in Q2, but we expect for it to pick up again in Q3, ahead of the October 31st Brexit deadline. The contingency stockpiling will drive import growth at a very high level in 2019, but this will happen at the cost of lower margins, given increased prices driven by the sterling depreciation. And as mentioned, GDP is expected for the next quarter, for the Q4, to be negative because of that, because of the unwinding of this contingency stock. And also it is expected to be negative in Q1 2020. But there should be a recovery afterwards. As an IT sector is impacted by many factors, as we can see in this diagram here. And for example, there is a company budgets and investments. So they need to, IT businesses need cash to support any capex, for example, acquisitions, any expansions, vehicle for distributors. The issue can happen when they generate low margins, or they are highly reliant on working capital facilities. Then we've got maybe end users as well. IT service providers can sell to third parties. It is very important to know who the quality of the third party, because the vendor can sell directly to the end user, but it can go through different channels. For example, going through distributors, IT solution provider, and then it will go to end users. And it is really important to understand the quality of the end users. Also, margins can be quite impacted because, especially in hardware and IT sector, they usually have typically low profits and margins. The issues are around the price pressures impacted by rising costs and currency exchange. Many IT businesses source their products from China, so they will deal in different currencies because of that. Then another interesting one is changes in hardware technology. The IT sector is, as we know, is evolving at fast pace. In past, we had fax machines and photocopier and telephones. Now we have everything condensed into one machine. We use smaller notebooks, increased use of tablets. The more value is in software. We are using different pieces of software. For example, Outlook is used for emails or Skype communication. And very important is security and GDPR. So it is important that the businesses have a robust cybersecurity in place. If you take an example of British Airways, in September 2018, they faced a possible fine for data breach. They were hit with a data breach fine of around 10 million, and thousands of BA customers had to cancel their credit cards, which were hacked, and this took place after the introduction of the new Data Protection Act. So it can be very costly if there is no robust cybersecurity in place. In terms of the economic indicators in 2019, what we are seeing, the consumer confidence remains negative. I will go through consumer confidence in a little bit more detail in the next slide, but it has been negative for nearly 4 years now. Where we see the positives at the moment is unemployment, GDP, and inflation. So employment is really high at the moment. It's one of the highest since 1974. It was 3.8% in May to July, and this is because people, the companies will the companies will employ people more often now because they prefer not to invest into machinery. because it is easier to hire and fire people in the future than actually invest in capex and then realize that was a mistake. So they will prefer to hire people at this time, especially because of the uncertainty that we are seeing. GDP has been increasing as well. It grew by 0.3% in July, and it has also grew in August by the same amount, 0.3%. And inflation is quite low at 1.7% because of the higher employment and increasing wages. The currency is many businesses have been struggling with currencies because of the weak sterling and depreciation, while some of the businesses were prepared for it because they through hedging, the other businesses weren't prepared for it, so they didn't hedge. And because of that, that had an impact on their margins, which are low. And because of that, if they can't generate high margins, they will have to rely on finance facilities, and they will need to manage their cash flow. And if that doesn't help, then they will, many of them will enter insolvencies. Competitions and costs are quite high as well at the moment. The competition is coming from many businesses, especially from the online businesses. For example, Amazon or Boohoo present stiff competition. There is high, especially what we see in the retail, there is high business rates. They have to pay for the leases, and the pension deficits are also a problem. We've seen that with BHS, so it was the business with Philip Green, and in 2000, this business BHS had a surplus of I think there was a surplus of about 200 million, and pension surplus of about 200 million. But by the end 2015, it actually was a deficit of 350 million. And Christmas and trading, it relates more to retailers, but we've seen with the Maplin as well, which they sell electronics, that for many retailers, Christmas represents a very important part of the business because they rely on turnover and the profitability during that period. And if that doesn't work for them, then they might enter insolvency later on in the year. This has happened with Maplin, for example. They were on high street. They were selling electronics, but they found very difficult to differentiate themselves from others. And they did not invest in online business or in capex, so they fell behind. They fell behind many competitors, such as Amazon or PC World, and that had an impact on the cash flow. In terms of the consumer confidence, we have seen nearly 48 consecutive months of a negative consumer confidence. Last time it was positive was in January 2016. In September 2019, so we only see here, so this is the consumer confidence line, and then we can see that it has been negative since January 2016. And in September 2019, it was -12, which improved since August 2018, which was -14, but it is a small improvement, but it is still negative. You would think that the positive wages and increased employment would give more confidence to the consumers, but unfortunately, the negatives usually outweigh positives, and people are still very uncertain about the outcome of the Brexit uncertainty, so they are not really willing to spend money on unnecessary items. Consumer confidence is a forward-looking statement, so it looks how the people view their personal situation in the next 12 months, and they compare it in how it was over the last 12 months. So for September 2019, we've seen that the The overall index score was -12, and the main issues were coming around the general economic situation over the last 12 months. It was very negative, and that will ties up with the Brexit uncertainty and increased costs, etc. Here, just sort of give you an idea about the sector risk challenges that we will see in sort of IT and electronics. So IT, as mentioned before, they will be impacted by currency because of the fluctuation of the prices of the IT goods, and they obtain the goods from Far East or other countries, and they pay in dollars or sterling, dollars or euros. Then personal, workforce, and future skill needs. You know, when there will be hard Brexit, how easy it will be for the companies to employ people from different countries, from Europe, etc. They will need to, some of the employees will have to get a training on customs or export just to understand it. As mentioned, cross-border trade, there will be the delays, some taxation and EU regulatory regime. And it's the same with the similar things with the electronics. There will be impacts on profitability, but from what we are seeing, the mobility of staff and remote working continue to drive notebook and laptop sales. So that should be still okay. So we think that from electronics point of view, the market should be quite stable going forward as well. Here we just sort of look at the insolvencies. The insolvencies we've seen in Q2 2019 have been increasing. The total company insolvencies were increased by 2.6%, and from Q1 2019, and around 11% from the compared to the same period last year. And main insolvencies are coming from creditors' voluntary liquidations, which have increased by 6.9%. So we do see rise in insolvencies. In terms of the sectors, if you break it down, the main insolvencies are coming through constructions, services, manufacturing as well, and retail. And these businesses, again, the same issues that they all suffer from, or they are all impacted by the exchange rate, high inflation, and uncertainty around the Brexit, significant competition. In manufacturing, they really need to invest in CapEx. So there could be quite investments that they will need to make. In terms of the failures, what we've seen within the IT and electronic sectors, we have seen already few failures. So I mentioned Maplin before, and the others quite famous ones or quite high-profile ones were Misco. They were very good IT reseller business. They were trading really well, and they were owned by the US company Systemix, but the problem started in around 2014 when they started generating losses. They found it difficult to differentiate from the others. They didn't have any kind of USP, and then they were sold to Hilco in March 2017, and by the end of 2017 they actually fell. So that was a very quick failure. Then we've got a Beta, which was a distributor. It started losing, the turnover started decreasing, and they started relying on an ID facility, and it is difficult to, and obviously the margins were very low, so it is difficult to survive if you have low margins, if you are relying on ID facilities and your turnover is falling. So this is just a few that actually failed. And here's.
Okay, thanks for that. So I'm just going to take you through quickly what credit insurance is, the added values that it could potentially give to your business, and then give you a quick overview of who Euler Hermes are and what it is we do on a day-to-day basis. Ultimately, credit insurance is insurance against the risk of non-payment by a debtor. This could be through insolvency or through an extended delay in the payments, which we call protracted default. However, it's much more multifaceted than that. There's certain levels of it. I think there's three key values really when we come to credit insurance. The first one is customer risk prevention. This is ultimately trying to steer you away from any bad debts that you may have. By doing so, to do this, we will monitor daily the creditworthiness of a number of companies across the globe using both public sources such as Accounting Companies House, as well as private sources of information such as payment performance data and management information which we might be able to get off these companies. This allows us to steer you away from these bad debts, but also allows you to focus on the more creditworthy companies and sort of target your sales where they can be supported in a long term. Second is prevention. If it gets to the point where you think you are perhaps going to suffer a bad debt, we have a twofold system to try and deal with that. There is in-house collections where we will try and receive that money for you. Often this is done locally. So if the debt is perhaps say in South America, the collection agent will be based there. So therefore they will know the local legal systems and protocols and give you the best chance of collecting that debt. Finally, if that's unsuccessful, we'll look at compensating that. So normally we will indemnify the claim to a level of about 90%. So who are Euler Hermes? We are one of the world leaders in credit insurance. We are owned by the Allianz Group, which gives us a real solid position financially. This is recognised by the fact that we've been an AA rated business by Standard & Poor's for 10 plus years, including during the financial crisis of 2007, while a number of other insurers might not have been able to keep that up. We have a large global presence in over 50 countries across the globe, with a presence on all continents. This allows us an extended reach to both access more information, remain close to the risk, and allows us to make more up-to-date and correct creditworthy decisions for your customers. This global reach means that roughly we are monitoring about 40 million plus companies on a daily basis, and this is about 92% of global GDP. So I'll let you know before about what I think the three main benefits of credit insurance were. The monitoring of information, the debt collection, and the claims indemnified. Here are a few stats to support that. So on an average basis, we're looking at over 300,000 collection cases a year across a number of different countries using their local legal expertise. Above that, we are indemnifying over 1,500 claims a week. But more importantly, we're helping businesses make the correct decision in the first place when it comes to creditworthiness, processing over 20,000 credit limit requests a day. A number of them are done immediately, instantly, while most of them are being done within under 48 hours. Ultimately, this means that you can move ahead swiftly and take and seize the opportunities that will allow your business to grow. Finally, with Euler Hermes, our real USP is our knowledge, our unrivaled information, which allows us to make these decisions. So like I said before, we will use publicly available information, such as information in Companies House and registered CCJs. However, the real benefit is the private information, the payment performance data, which other policyholders report to us. So we know if if companies are having cash flow issues, as it will become evident in their payment performance. We also have a risk network, which allows us to go out, meet with prospective buyers and gain up-to-date management information so we can be ahead of the curve when it comes to making these creditworthiness decisions. That goes on across the globe. To give you an idea, in the UK, we have 5 risk hubs where this is taking place across the UK and Ireland, where we have analysts both at the desk and on the road, out doing buyer visits, accessing and requesting this up-to-date information, which will allow us to make, hopefully, positive limit decisions to support your growth. Just like to say thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure being here.
Thank you very much indeed, Yvette and Christopher. Very interesting, and hopefully that was thought-provoking. So if anybody's got any questions, please use the chat button at the bottom. We have a couple already, so we'll throw these into the pot. So the first one is, what currently do you see as the most high-risk sectors out there? I think some of them we probably already know, but what are the high-risk sectors?
Okay, so the high-risk sector at the moment that we are paying claims for are mainly the construction.
Can you get a little bit closer to the mic?
Hello? Right, okay, can you hear me?
Yeah,
now?
Better.
Right, okay, so the highest risk sector that we are currently seeing are constructions, because the construction will have a high cost, there is high competition, there is pressure on margins. They are highly reliant on debt and funding, sometimes from the government. We have seen a failure of Carillion, which was a big business. Nobody would think they would fail. You would think it's too big to fail, but it just shows that none of the businesses are safe in this current economic climate. Then we also see difficulties in casual dining as well. The price is impacted by inflation and weak sterling. There are supply chain costs. Also, if there will be, going forward, if there will be any delays on the borders, obviously the food sector relies on perishable items, so there could be any issues around that. And again, the competition and lack of staff from the EU. You know, some of the, for example, Italian restaurants, they will want to employ, they might find it harder to employ people from maybe Italy, just to have like authentic kind of Italian experience. And also, again, the high debt and there are high business rates paying for the premises. We have seen that some of the dining, some of the restaurants went actually into, failed during the year. So it could be likes of Jamie Oliver's or Patisserie Valerie. Also, we've seen Pretzel going into CVA. And of course, retail is another sector we are highly monitoring at the moment, and it can tie up with the IT businesses as well, because for some of the IT resellers, the retail could be their end customers, so they need to, set up the tills, set up any technology for them. So that could be quite, so you could be. The IT businesses could be impacted by that as well, directly or indirectly. And in terms of retail, we've seen failures of department stores such as Debenhams, House of Fraser, Better Bathrooms, and also we've seen lots of CVAs. So that these are creditors' voluntary arrangements, and they went into into CVAs such as Arcadia. So it's a business owned by Philip Green. They own Topshop, Topman, Dorothy Perkins, etc. Then you've got Mothercare, Debenhams. So it's quite high-profile names. So these are the main sectors, I would say: construction, casual dining, and retail.
Thank you. As I said, probably not a very surprising list, but especially with construction, always seem to be at the top of the list. So
yes.
We have another question coming from Marcel Kalala. What is the prediction on interest rates? Are they going down?
Not sure. I mean, they were hoping to increase the interest rates, but they held it. I think it will be all, probably we will have some more update maybe in the next quarter, like depending on the Brexit outcome. Yeah. But at the moment they are 0.75%. I know that they wanted to increase. They were hoping to increase it in last quarter, but they decided not to. They decided just to hold off, and depending on the Brexit outcome from the Brexit negotiations.
that seems to be, yes, the outcome of Brexit seems to be responsible for lots of different things here, and I'm not surprised that they didn't want to rock the boat by changing the interest rates. So,
yeah,
yeah, so.
Yeah, it's very difficult to say at the moment.
We also have another question here. What are the specific areas of concern around us having a hard Brexit?
So, as mentioned throughout the presentation as well, we've touched on some of the points. So obviously, currency is always a big concern, especially with the weak sterling. Currency is very sensitive, so whenever there is some kind of movement in economy, the first thing that will react is the currency, and we've seen that with sterling. Then again, supply chain. Lots of businesses are relying on the supply chain. They want to get their products to the country in time, and if this doesn't happen, they could be delayed in the payments. They will not deliver on contracts, etc. So that's a worry. And then we've got the capex and investments. Lots of businesses have stalled investments, or they are not investing as much, or they stopped, factories. They stopped altogether, and they are waiting for the outcome of the Brexit, which is quite worrying. But they are waiting for it to see what happens, and then they see whether they can invest again going forward. Some of the businesses have moved their head offices to European countries because they are not confident, because of the lack of confidence, and also with the staffing as well. So we've seen that previously we had lots of people coming here from the EU to the UK looking for the jobs. They came with the expertise, but we also seen that many of them left already because of, again, going back to Brexit, but also the sterling has fallen, so they are better off just being in their own countries, and because it's not viable for them to be here anymore because of the potential restrictions going forward.
Well, it's going to be an interesting, probably next 36 to 48 hours to see whether this is going to be solved or is it business going to continue to hang around. So, well, that was all the questions. So I'd like to thank Iveta and Chris for their presentation, and I'd like to thank you all for dialing in, and hopefully you found it informative, and hopefully you'll join us again for future webinars. This one was recorded and will be available in the next couple of days on our website, and please keep your eyes open on social media for details on the forums, future meetings and webinar dates, and hopefully we will I was going to say see you then, but maybe it's a case of hear you then. So thanks very much indeed, and all the very best for the future. Thank you very much indeed.